Welcome back, you guys, and maybe the word saving is a bit strong here, but before the beginning of this season, all 5 of these NBA players had their team's fans saying at one point, is this guy going to be able to contribute to winning on our team? Because if not, does he have a future with the current roster? These players were really good at one point, fell off, and now in 2021 are redeeming themselves and look like the best version or one of the better versions of themselves. Now, is there a scenario where all 5 of these players regress a bit and play worse than what they are doing now? Of course, but all of them are now in roles that make sense going forward. Before Andrew Wiggins even played 1 minute of college basketball, he was being talked about in a similar way of some of the greatest to ever play. At 6'8", when you combine Wiggins' physical tools with the development of an NBA coaching staff, it was assumed that Wiggins reaching superstar status was for sure happening. And even if he didn't, Wiggins' worst case scenario seemed like a guy who averaged 20 points per game easy, makes a few All-Star games, and was a solid #1 pick. This isn't a detailed Andrew Wiggins career rehash video, but if you're an NBA fan, we know what happened since those comparisons. He did not produce like the young greats did in the past. He floated in and out of games at Kansas, and after his 3rd season with the Minnesota Timberwolves, he got worse in every way on the court. And it only got worse for him in the franchise when he signed a 5-year, $146.5 million extension. Timberwolves owner Glenn Taylor said that Andrew is one of the best young players in the NBA, and he has the talent and work ethic to get even better and be a foundation for our franchise for many years. Wiggins definitely did not get better as a player and was not a foundational piece for the Wolves franchise going forward. The team was paying him $30 million a year, one of the highest paid players in the league, and you expect to get superstar level production for that number. Wiggins did not give that type of production. His outside shot was broke, he was not defending well for someone with his size, and did not play with consistent effort. Before he was eventually traded to the Golden State Warriors, there were questions of will Wiggins ever be a contributing factor to a successful team? Besides finishing at the rim and the occasional good effort on defense, there was nothing you could say he did well enough to justify having him take on a larger role. And in his 7th NBA season, he has been a big factor of why the Warriors are the 5th seed in the West right now. Wiggins is not putting up huge counting stats, but this has been his best season as a defender by far. He had 0 games with 4 blocks or more with Minnesota. With the Warriors, he already has 3 games with 4 blocks or more. Wiggins is giving more effort on defense than he ever had before. He's been taking on the major perimeter threat almost every single night. He blocked 5 shots against the Pacers and guarded Malcolm Brogdon for parts of the game. He guarded Kawhi in back-to-back games and held him to 1 made shot and forced a bunch of turnovers in the 2nd game. And in their surprise win over the Lakers, he played pretty good defense on LeBron in the 4th quarter. It's only been like 14 games, but I don't see why some of this stuff isn't sustainable. He's shooting the best he ever has from 3 next to Steph Curry. He can learn from Draymond Green. He's a 6'8" athletic guy. Why can't he continue to be a good defender all year? Again, the overall offensive production isn't the greatest, but he never played defense like this in Minnesota for a 13-game stretch. He's not going to live up to the #1 pick hype, but this version of Wiggins might be his best form long term. Back in the summer of 2015, Nick Batum was traded to the Charlotte Hornets. For the 7 years before that, Batum was a quality starting small forward on a bunch of successful Portland Trailblazers teams. The logic for the Hornets here was, okay, we're going to have a 6'8" wing that can be a shooter, defender, and secondary playmaker next to Kemba Walker, and it worked out in that first season. Batum was averaging 15 points per game, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists, and provided a decent level of defense for the Hornets. They won 48 games, but lost in 7 to the Miami Heat in round 1. In the summer of 2016, the Hornets re-signed him to a 5-year, $120 million contract. He was one of the highest paid guys in the league at that point, and every team around the NBA that had cap space that summer wanted to sign Batum. But that first year, Batum was the best the Hornets ever got from him. It was only downhill from there. He would go on to suffer multiple injuries over the next few years that kept him out of the lineup, and when he did come back to the lineup, he looked awful. One of the worst players in the league who was playing like 20 minutes a game. The few Hornets games I remember watching, it looked like he was moving with weights around his ankles. He looked cooked. Paying a guy $25 million a year to score 12 points per game on mediocre efficiency is a big time L, and it set back the Hornets franchise. The playmaking, secondary scoring, and defense was not there after the first year. And in the final year with Charlotte in 2020, he was so bad they didn't even play him when he was back and healthy. After the Hornets waived him a few months ago, he entered free agency with not much excitement. There was a lot of talk about him signing with a contender, and the Clippers brought him in. It made sense for them. They were thin at the forward spot once you got past Kawhi, Paul George, and Marcus Morris. And he's shocking everyone so far with the Clippers. It's been years since he's looked this quick moving around the court. The numbers aren't too crazy. He's averaging 10 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. But what's been great is his efficiency. He's shooting over 43% on 3-point shots, which is the highest mark of his career. Will that last? Maybe not, but a lot of them are wide open threes. Batum has done everything the Clippers need him to do: make open shots, defend, and move the ball quickly. I'm honestly shocked at how good he's been. Other people thought he was done. I thought he was done, but he redeemed himself so far this year, and it's not crazy to think that he helps the Clippers win a few playoff games with his shooting and passing. When Mike Conley was traded from the Memphis Grizzlies to the Utah Jazz, it gave the Jazz a new look on both sides of the court. Even though Conley was getting older, the move was to lessen the pressure off of Donovan Mitchell as a playmaker, and hopefully it would create a slightly more unpredictable offense in the final minutes of a close game. Utah made the playoffs for multiple years in a row, and they were never going to get a real star to join them, so getting Conley, who has proven to be a steady, reliable two-way point guard, who would have made a few All-Star games if he played in the East, made sense for them. But Conley was unreliable and looked old in his first year with the Utah Jazz. He had the worst year of his career and really struggled to get to the rim. At one point, he was shooting below 40% from the field and missed some time due to injury. Other than Jordan Clarkson, the Jazz had one of the worst scoring benches, and Conley being out hurt them. Even though he only had 2 years left on his deal, he was not living up to that $30 million he was getting paid. You had to wonder if the Jazz made the right move at the time. But 2021 is a new year. Conley looks healthy and building off his pretty good performance in the NBA bubble playoffs. The Jazz are tied for second place in the Western Conference. You hear a lot about Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell being really good for them, and they have been, but this 10-4 start has a lot to do with Mike Conley getting back to his old form. He's back up to 6 assists per game and shooting a career-high in 3-point percentage. Conley is making an effort to take more 3-point shots this year, and it's opened up his in-between game to find his teammates. Even when Conley was healthy last season, it seemed like he struggled adjusting, trying to fit his offense with another high-usage guard, but this year he looks more comfortable. I feel bad for having someone as young as Kevin Knox in this video, but I think this is a good example of holding out hope on a rookie player until their first contract is up. Kevin Knox's first 2 years were about as disappointing as you can get for someone drafted in the top 10. Knox was drafted 9th overall in the 2018 NBA draft due to him being a 6'7" athletic wing that could get to the rim and eventually, due to his length, become a quality defender. He also shot 34% on 3-point shots in college, so there was some hope he'd eventually become a league average 3-point shooter. In Knox's rookie year, the Knicks basically said, okay, we're going to be bad, so let's just put our top draft pick out there and let him play through his mistakes. Knox played a lot of minutes and had his moments of potential, but he mostly looked like a 19-year-old struggling to impact an NBA game. Rookies usually aren't that great, and that's okay, but it wasn't exactly a positive sign going forward. The drop-off from his rookie year to his second year was honestly kind of brutal, and I know a lot of people were unsure of his future past his rookie year. He somehow looked worse and did not look like a reliable rotation player in all facets of the game. I know that sounds kind of dramatic, but that's really what it was. In his second year, Knox no longer got the freedom to do as he pleases on offense. Marcus Morris was brought in, and he started. Mo Harkless played over him at times, and naturally Kevin Knox's minutes per game dropped. His shot attempts dropped, and even worse, his shooting percentage numbers slightly dropped as well. But now in his third year, Knox is having the best season as a guy who actually contributes to wins. The counting numbers don't exactly show it, but you see the impact if you've seen a Knicks game. He's been one of the better corner 3-point shooters this year. The last time I checked, I think he's like top 10 in corner 3-pointers made. He has a more defined role as a corner shooter next to Julius Randle, Elfrid Payton, and RJ Barrett. Kevin seems to be more comfortable in a role where he plays as a catch-and-shoot guy rather than someone who starts offense with his dribble like he got to do in his rookie year. Off the dribble stuff eventually could be a thing for Knox, but it's better to simplify a 21-year-old's role in this offense. When Gordon Hayward signed with the Charlotte Hornets for $120 million over the next 4 years, it was immediately looked at as the worst contract in the NBA. Everyone was clowning the Hornets for this move. The last 4 years, Gordon hasn't done much to warrant that big of a contract. Because of injuries, Jaylen Brown getting better, and Jason Tatum becoming a top 15, top 20 player, he never got back to being the Gordon Hayward we saw in Utah. This was a big risk by Charlotte if it didn't work out. Even though Hayward is obviously not a $30 million player, I liked the signing at the time because the makeup of this Hornets team benefits Hayward's style of play. It's a modern team with athletic forwards that can shoot. You have 3 guards in LaMelo, Rozier, and Devontae that all have their strengths as dribble drive guys, passers, and shooters. And you add Hayward into the mix as someone who could run a pick and roll, shoot a 3 off the catch and off the dribble. You have an interesting team. Not a team that can make a deep playoff run, but a team that can be annoying to face on a random regular season night. Hayward is having his best season since that last Utah year. He had a career-high 44 points a few weeks ago. In 13 games, Hayward is putting up 22 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists, and shooting 49% from the field, and shooting 41% on threes. He hasn't had a stretch of games like this in years. Like, look at this picture of the Western Conference All-Star reserves. This is what the NBA looked like the last time Gordon Hayward actually impacted winning. He is going through an injury with his hip, and he's been out for a week. Could this be like a Nick Batum situation where Hayward is good in year 1 and then bad going forward? I guess anything is possible, but Hayward can actually score. Batum was so inefficient at the time. Hayward is going to be good, I think. And that is it for me in this one. Again, is it possible some of these players don't play as well as soon as this video drops? Yes, but all of them are in clearer, defined roles, so I don't see why they can't continue to make their teams better. Appreciate it if you made it to the end. My next video should be on Lonzo Ball, so be on the lookout for that.